So I'm talking with Jessie Wagner today, whose new album "Shoes Droppin." Sorry, I'm adding a G when I didn't need to. Um, is coming out on Wicked Cool through Orchard, the Orchard label, on the 9th, right?
October 9th. Yep, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I had that in the back of my head, but as soon as I look up things, I forget them. So I wasn't giving someone um, the wrong date. And End of Time is so far the only song I've heard off the album, and I've heard it on Little Steven's Underground Garage a lot. It was the coolest song of the week, and it was a really good one, and it intrigued me to want to find out more about you. So.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks.
Yeah. Now you've been performing for a lot. Is this your first album as a solo artist completely?
Yes and no. Completely, yes. I've fronted a rock band for a while, but
Yeah.
About 4 years ago, I kind of I went through a very difficult time, and some songs came out of that that I've been kind of crafting since then. And while I've been touring steadily, I was getting to the point where I was like, okay, I need to do Jessie at some point.
Yeah.
and I really wanted to get these songs out because of what they meant to me, and it took me to a level of vulnerability that I'd never gone to with any of my previous projects. So I was like, okay, you have these songs, it's time to get in the studio, get serious, and do this particular kind of sound, this particular kind of project. It's very different from anything I've put out before, but it's also somewhat it varied in the sense that there's blues and there's soul and pop and singer-songwriter and folk and country. I kind of allowed myself to just let the songs be whatever they were going to be. And I didn't think anybody would necessarily get it, because you're supposed to be this box. You're supposed to be, this is who you are as an artist. And this is who I am as an artist, but I feel like I encompass so many more things.
Yeah.
And the fact that Stevie got it and was like, this is cool. He's like, he hadn't really seen an approach quite like this. Aside from himself, I mean, if you look at Little Steven's last record, it's very unique in that it encompasses, again, so many different kinds of styles and genres.
Yeah.
And I was drawn to that in the sense that I feel like that's the kind of artist I am. I'm influenced by so many different things. So I wanted that to be a representation of who I am on this record. It's like, I don't want to be in this box. I want to show you all my sides. And In the Time was a lot of fun because it was so poppy and so bubblegum and fun. And it allowed me to take away from some of the darker things that I was grappling with a record and bring some light. So the End of Time, there's another song that's coming out, Passing Me By, and my first single that I released, Over and Over. They're kind of more fun and tongue-in-cheek and uplifting, so it kind of balances the shoes dropping. Yeah.
Now, with Shoes Dropping, for some reason in my head when I heard the title, I figured it was like a party reference, but Shoes Dropping, I'm guessing, means that crap is happening.
Exactly. So, the saying, waiting
for another shoe drops, yeah. But for some reason in my head, I was like, it sounds like, maybe a new term for partying. I don't know.
Maybe I'll write a different shoes dropping.
Shoes dropping music.
Yeah. Maybe I'll put a whole nother spin on my next one. This shoes dropping part 2. So
the happy stuff.
Yeah, the happy.
Well, tell me a little bit about how you approached the songwriting and how it got to be. Did you demo it and then start shopping it around, or how did that all end up working out?
Again, my approach to songwriting is I just write what I feel in that moment. And with a title track, because I was going through such a difficult time, and when you listen to the song, it's straight up just kind of like Delta blues vibe, you know, sitting on the front porch eating some sugarcane kind of
Yeah.
thing. But I just remember in at the time just like, Lord, I can't take any more. And
Right.
as I was writing it, that's why it came across having that kind of feel. End of Time, when I heard the music was just so bubbly. A friend of mine sent me a piano track, and he's like, do you like this track? And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'm going to write to it. And I wrote lyrics and melody on top of it. And but because the music itself was so light and bubbly, it made me feel light and bubbly.
Yeah.
So I'm very, it's usually mood oriented, the kind of sound and feel that my songs come out of. And I allow my headspace wherever I am in that moment to create whatever, you know, and allow it to be whatever it's going to be. And, and I feel like my voice is the thing that connects it all together. And somehow it works. Like if you listen to the record, it kind of takes you on this journey of sound, but it still sounds connected. So when I presented it to little Steven, I was really just going to ask him for advice, because I was like, okay, I want to go out. I want to tour off of my name. I love touring with other people. It's a great experience. It's allowed people to know who I am, which I'm very grateful for. But it's very different when you're supporting someone and then you're the front and everybody's relying.
Oh, absolutely.
And I wanted that experience. I've never toured on my own. So that's essentially when I sent him the record. I was like, hey, can you listen to this? Let me know what you think. Give me some advice on how I should start promoting this or how I should go about releasing it. And he said, yeah, let's talk. Let's talk. You know, and so I ended up meeting him a couple of days later in this little underground restaurant in New York. And it felt like I was meeting like Silvio, you know. Yeah, the restaurant was empty. It was just me and him. It's like pre-COVID, we were like empty in this restaurant, and he has, you know, his coffee, and I'm like, wow, this is different. I'm not gonna get whacked, am I? So we sit down, and he said, this is good. This is good. And he actually listened to the whole thing. And I was like, oh my God, he actually listened. Because, you know, you give stuff to guys all the time, and they're like, yeah, I'll take a listen. And then 5 years later, I was like, did you like it? You know?
Yeah,
So the fact that he sat down and listened, and he said, you know, Jess, this is, I think you're a real artist, and I'm excited to see what you're going to come up with in the future. I think this would be good for my label. And then he's like, have you heard of Wicked Cool? And of course, in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah.
Well, I mean, you toured with him.
Of course, I've heard of Wicked Cool, and you know, of course, in your heart of hearts, you're like, I would love to get on a record deal, you know. But but you don't. You go in trying to be pragmatic and just, you know, hope for the best.
Right.
But the fact that, you know, that's what he said in this meeting, it just blew my mind, because I mean, there's hoping for the best, and then there's the best happening. So
Exactly. Yeah.
you know, and then like I think 2 days after that, I was in Wicked Cool's office, and you know, they're like talking about the deal, and next thing I know, I'm signed, and you know, we're taking it, figuring out which song's going to be the singles, which this, that, and the other, how we're going to release it. And it's just been kind of a whirlwind ever since. Yes, it was very exciting because it all happened in January. And then March.
Yeah.
March kind of, you know, it was a whirlwind, and then, you know.
Yeah, things were starting to move, and then.
Right, yeah, it's like, oh, my dreams are coming. Oh, no, they're not.
Yeah. So you had the whole thing done before you gave it to him.
I did. I had the whole, you know, I presented him the whole album, and he was just like, this is great. Let's go.
So you didn't have to do anything else with it after when you signed?
When I signed and we started talking about singles, see, when I was going to do it myself, I was just going to release the whole thing and you know, let it be whatever it's going to be, because I had no concept of how to promote an album. Right. And they were like, no, let's release a single, and we're going to put it on vinyl, so you need a B-side. And I was like, well, I gave you my songs.
Yeah.
So, I had to, had these deadlines now, which I didn't have before because I was like, I had it done out, my album was done.
Right.
And they're like, no, we need a song like yesterday. So fortunately, as a writer, you always have stuff lying around. And I happened to have a demo of a song that I was working on, and it seemed to fit. So I got in the studio really, really quick, finished up that song, and added it as the B-side to my first single.
Cool. So I think that's what's amazing about times like these days, not in COVID times, but that you can go out and you can put together something on your own and then sell it, or shop it around. I think that's just one of the incredible things where before it used to be you really had to, I mean, there was the DIY period and all that, but there is something different about modern times where you can do it a lot differently
It,
than
it's
you
a
used to.
double-edged sword in a way,
Yeah.
because it's great that you have that capability, but before, when you were an artist and you were like 70s or whatever, they would see your potential and they would help hone you so that
Mm.
you were able to have all these great minds and this huge force creating this amazing thing with you. Nowadays, I think majors don't even really want to deal with you unless you're
Right.
kind of already the thing,
Right.
and they just add the sparkle here and there.
Right.
Um, so I mean, I'm glad that I had the album done and I was ready to go, because I think for this particular instance it worked in my benefit. But I wish I had grown up in a time where it was more hands on with the
Mm.
label. If I could have had like an Ahmed Erdogan, watching
Yeah.
my career.
Right.
um, but I have to say for Wicked Cool, because it's been so challenging this year and not being able to promote it in the way that I would like, not being able to get out and really tour, they have been very supportive, and I don't think I would have gotten that from a major had I
Yeah.
signed with a Warner or whatever. um I can call up the label and cry and be like, I don't know what I can't take it anymore, and they'll walk me through it, and I feel like it's definitely a family environment, and that I feel like they definitely are watching, and they got my back.
Yeah. Well, I think that has a lot to do with probably how Steven
Yeah.
set it up to begin with. I mean, and I mean, um, for for me as a fan of his channel, I know how deep the music is, and the music is technically all over the place. Style wise, there's all sorts of stuff. And
Right.
my musical knowledge has only grown from listening, being a listener of the show, or this, well, his show and the channel. So
Right.
it's like, but and your song just like, it's weird because it's like your song is modern and classic sounding at the same time, and it fits so perfectly with what they do over there. So I was,
Yeah.
I'll admit, they do the coolest song of the week every week, and not every week do I say, oh, that's awesome. Sometimes
Right.
if I'm listening too much, I'm like, do I really have to hear the song again? Your week, when I was listening that week, I was like, I could not get enough of it. So
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
That
So I mean, I always cherish those weeks when I just love a song, and that's what put me on your radar. Because honestly, I don't. I used to write about music all the time, so I've been a little out of it for a number of years. I wrote about the food business for a number of years, and then I got older, and despite my thinking at 35, oh, I'm never going to be that guy that's not going to know what's happening right now. I'm like at 50, like, who are all these kids? Like,
yeah.
I was looking at festival lineups. I'm like, this sounds like some sort of made up nonsense. There's not
Right.
any of these bands anymore.
uh,
you know, so it's like, that's why I appreciate his channel, because it does introduce me to some new stuff occasionally, anyway, so get off of what.
no, but he's quite a musicologist. I mean, even
Yeah.
before he can name some obscure band from 1952 and name when they came out and what year their biggest hit was. And
Right.
I've never known anyone who has a greater volume of knowledge
Yeah.
just, of music that
Yeah.
you can just spew at any moment. It's really quite remarkable.
Yeah. It's just his. What I appreciate most about him is his championing of artists. Really, it's like, and the label has just put out some really interesting stuff. So that's just fantastic. Well, let me divert a bit. You've been a singer in a lot of pretty big established acts. From what I've understand, I've seen Lenny Kravitz, Kid Rock, Chic, Duran. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch. How did that kind of start for you to be like a touring and I'm guessing studio work too?
Some yeah.
Yeah. How did that work and does that sort of like do you get into a thing where you don't want to rock the boat like when you finally decide to make the album, but you're doing all these except for this year obviously it probably was the perfect time to make an album,
Right.
except not at the same time, but you're doing all these big tours and everything and you're making I'm guessing decent money, and you're like okay it's not my music but I'm making music, I'm on stage, I'm singing, I'm doing what probably 90% of musicians wish they were doing.
Right.
How what does it take to say, to upset the apple cart, so to speak?
It's terrifying actually.
I can imagine.
Yeah, because well, one, you have to be somewhat certifiable to be a musician anyway, because it's the
Yeah.
most you have no safety net. There's no security in anything that you do.
No,
And
for sure.
I've been fortunate to have had a steady career over the years and worked with a lot of different artists. So yeah, you do get used to that. Because that's the closest thing to security you can get when it comes to having this kind of career. But then again, you're always supporting someone else,
Right.
and you're always at the whim of someone else.
Exactly.
So if someone gets sick or they change their mind and decide, you know what, I don't need background singers this tour, or maybe I'm changing the look, so anything can happen where it affects your life, and you have no control over it. I mean, not to say that I have much control over my own solo career. There's still variables there.
No, but it's still yours. It's
But
not.
it's mine,
Yeah.
right? So last year I finished the tour with Stevie Van Zandt. I knew this year I didn't have anything booked. I was looking, and again, I guess the opportunity presented itself. It's like, okay, you finished the record. You don't have a tour coming up. You're just kind of like doing local things, session work, picking up corporate gigs, whatever. Why don't you take this moment and just see what you can do?
Yeah.
And I think there's a point when you've been doing it as long as I have where you're like, okay, how long can you do this?
Yeah.
Because you make decent money when you're on the road, but as soon as you're off the road, whoo,
Right.
child. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a whole nother.
Nobody's paying you to stay at home.
Exactly. It's feast or famine,
Right.
and it's still a big risk because I spent a lot of money, my own money, doing my record. I didn't
Yeah.
have a label paying for it. I did it all.
Right. Exactly.
So I took a lot of those funds that I had saved up from touring, and I was like, okay, this is it. You got to take a chance at some point, because
Right.
how many years can you go on? And not to say that I couldn't keep going. I know background singers that are in their 70s, whatever, still doing it.
Right.
But it's hard. It gets harder the older you get. It's grueling being on the road. It wears at your body. It wears at your spirit. It's the best thing and the hardest thing at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, before I am 80 and I have to run out on stage with a cane, you know, at least try, see what you can do at this point when you don't have anything planned, you don't have that next tour popping up right now. It's like you have
Right.
to take advantage of the moment when it comes.
Right. Yeah. No, understandable. It's like, oh mine. I just had a thought in my head and I just let it go.
Happens to me all the time.
Yeah, I have no idea what I was going to say. There was something I was going to say to what you said, and well, all right. So, so did you put together the album like kind of piecemeal, or did you record it semi all at once?
Oh no, it was definitely piecemeal because I was
Yeah.
on tour. So, you know, I'd be gone for a couple of months and then I'd have to cram it in 2 weeks, whatever I could get done in 2 weeks. So this 2 weeks, I would get the vocals done and maybe I could get the drums and the bass done. Or a lot of it was done remotely too. Like I would be on the road and my producer was like, "Well, I have such and such the keys coming in." And he's gonna lay down the piano part here and the organ parts here, and I had to kind of like, you know, go on faith that they'll get, you know,
Yeah.
what we
Yeah.
needed. Because you know, I try to be in the studio as much as I can for all the recording. Like I remember when the cellist was in, and I just boohooed because it was so beautiful, and I didn't expect. You know, you want something for your song, and then when you hear it and it's so lush and beautiful and gorgeous, it's such an overwhelming experience because it elevates your music to a whole nother level. So
Yeah.
I was so happy I was able to hear the cellist when he was working on my songs. But yeah, it would be I'd have 2 days here before we had to go upstate New York or wherever. So I recorded all the vocals for all the songs in those 2 days, backgrounds, you know, leads, everything. Um, and it was kind of like the same with my guitarist. Whenever I was home, I was like, okay, let's try and get in here and there and get it done. And then finally, the tour slowed down. That I was able to like sit down and we could edit it and like, no, let's take this out, let's add this and that kind of stuff.
Right. That's
Yeah.
cool. So
Thanks.
you were working on it and having it worked on during the Soulfire tour for
Yeah.
Little Steven.
Soulfire and Summer of Sorcery tour.
Okay.
Hmm.
Cool. How long were you part of, or how long? I mean, I'm not saying that you're not going to be for whatever it's next, but how long were you part of Steven's band?
Um, I see. I think I did the first run with him in 2017, but that was still kind of with Lenny. Uh, so I brought in the other background singers with me from Lenny's band, and we had to finish out some dates with Lenny. And then I think I came in at the tail end of 2018 and did all of 2019. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, that was an interesting album too. I heard the shows were really good. I just didn't get a chance. I think he sold out when he was playing Chicago, so I didn't end up having a chance to even see that show. I was actually kind of interested in checking out what that would look like. 'Cause it's a pretty big band, right?
Huge,
Yeah,
huge.
yeah,
Yeah, massive. But yeah, it was a really entertaining in that again there were so many different vibes going on and it was very colorful. If you've ever seen it in pictures,
yeah.
there was a lot of patterns and colors and feathers. Oh my! Um, so and it just got even more colorful as we went into the Summer of Sorcery. But it was it's eclectic show and it was tiring too because they're long and we danced the whole time, danced and
Yeah.
sung our little hearts out and headbanged and everything.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's cool. And then you grew up in Virginia, correct?
I was born in Virginia. I guess I grew up. I am a Southern girl. I spent a lot of time in Alabama, Virginia, mainly, but also Tennessee and Florida.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so we moved around the South a lot, but I'm definitely a Southern girl of my youth. I guess I've been living in New York for many years now.
Yeah.
So, but I still consider myself mostly a country girl.
Gotcha. Why did you move around so much as a kid? Did your parents like weren't in the military or?
My mom's a gypsy.
Okay.
She kind of went where the wind blew, and she's like, I want to try this job, so we're gonna go here.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, my mom just kind of had a sense of adventure, and so we moved around a lot. Always in the South, but
Yeah.
I think I'm grateful for that, especially now, because I think had I not had that kind of experience, I don't think I would have been able to live anywhere. Because I feel like at this point, I could live anywhere, I could go anywhere if I
Yeah.
had to. And that's because I had that kind of childhood. Because I was actually rather shy when I was
Yeah.
younger. And my mom always tried really hard to open me up and expose me to a lot of different things. And you don't always get that in the South. So I was very
Yeah.
grateful to her for trying to keep my horizons burgeoning.
Yeah. What was that like as a kid moving around though? I'm sure it was a lot different than what you feel about it now. Was it hard to do?
It was hard sometimes, but you do end up living someplace long enough. You're like, why did I have all my friends and now I'm leaving?
Yeah.
But you grow, you learn, you make new friends, and again, I appreciate it now. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had my moments. I had my stubborn cross my arms moments, but um it was a pretty good childhood. My mom, she always kind of made it fun and interesting in a way.
Yeah. Is she still around?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Where's she at now?
She is in Virginia, and I
Okay.
spent the first bit of quarantine with her down there, but I had to flee because all my mom does is cook. So I gained like I don't know 20 pounds. I was like, this isn't gonna work. I'm gonna go back to New York and quarantine in my little apartment and eat, cup of noodles. So
So she's doing okay.
she is doing okay. It's funny. She just sent me some bread. She sent me some banana nut bread.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
She's still trying to feed you from
she's still trying to feed me.
miles away.
She asked me, "What's in your fridge? Do you have any eggs?"
I have mustard. That's all I have.
Right. I have mayonnaise and ketchup. I'm gonna order a burger, a veggie burger.
Are you a vegetarian?
I'm a pescatarian. Yes.
Pescatarian. Okay.
Yes.
That's cool. Well, that down south, that's good place to be.
Yeah.
Fish. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have an older sister with my mom, and my dad. He remarried, and so I have a stepbrother and a stepsister, and 2 more stepsisters.
That's cool.
Yeah.
They're all in the south.
They are all in the South. My dad is in Alabama.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it doesn't get more southern than that, pretty much.
I think yeah, Alabama, Mississippi, those might be the most southern states.
Well, yeah, when you think of the South, you definitely think Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi.
For sure.
It's funny. I was talking on the phone, and a friend was listening to me. As I was talking to some of my dad's friends. And when I hung up, they're like, "You got really country."
So that just comes out when you talk.
It comes out. Yeah, when I'm around my family, I sound like a very different person.
That's funny. That's funny. So it's almost like some sort of a thing where for New York, you abandoned the accent, the talking, out of probably some sort of fear of how New Yorkers treat people who don't sound like New Yorkers.
Oh, when I first moved to New York, I just remember it was such an eye-opening experience because yes, as a Southerner, you have a slower pace, you kind of move differently, you talk differently, everything is spread out. And I remember going into a pizzeria, I just wanted a slice of pizza, and the guy's like, "Okay, what do you want?" And I'm like, "Hi, how are you?"
Not New York.
Oh,
Nobody has time for that.
Right. And he's like, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
I got customers. I got customers.
It terrified me. I was like, what's that? Cheese, cheese. I just want cheese.
Just run out. I don't know. I'm running out.
I almost did. I remember I was here for 6 months. I was like, I can't do it, Mom. I can't. I'm leaving. I'm coming home.
I'm at the door of the local pizza place. I'm opening the door. Oh no, forget it. I'm running back to my apartment.
And put the sheets over my head so I gave up.
I gotta say, I haven't been to New York. I mean, I've lived in Chicago, but I know that no matter what city you've lived in, nothing can prepare you for experiencing New York.
No, it's so unique in itself. Out of every place in the world, New York has its own feel and vibe, unlike anything. And it does take a minute to get used to if you're visiting, okay, it's cute. Oh, New Yorkers.
Yeah.
But if you're living here, you have to pick up the pace. You have to realize it's just a different feel, and you can't take a lot of things. You can't get offended. If people are like, "Come on," because it's just a faster pace.
Yeah.
And from what I've known, New Yorkers are lovely, absolutely lovely. They might be a little gruff in the beginning, but that's, it doesn't. It's not a hatred kind of thing. It's not like
Right.
They're still very welcoming, loving people. It's just
that things move at the New York pace.
At the New York pace, exactly.
Yeah. And you have to move with it. It's not, you're not outside a cafe in Italy somewhere,
Exactly.
where you can sit there and take 3 hours to drink your coffee. You got everybody's got places to be.
Right. Yeah.
It's too expensive there to be not in a hurry.
Exactly. But it's so it's lovely, it's beautiful. And even though I feel like I'm a perpetual tourist, because I'm still awed whenever I'm driving into the city and you see this lovely skyline of the city.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. It's breathtaking still. And there's so many pockets to the city that take you away. Like if you're in the cloisters in Manhattan, and you feel like you're in like this beautiful little gardened paradise, or you go to like the Tenement Museum down in the East Village off of Orchard Street, and you see what it's like to have been here in the turn of the century.
They have They have a museum for tenements.
Yes.
Fascinating. No, because that's one of the things I like. If I watch like The Godfather 2 or something like that, I love that in the early 70s, Coppola was able to direct to make 1970s New York. 1970s New York still looked enough like early 20th century New York to film and make it look as authentic as possible. And I used to think about, you saw all the old movies where people lived on top of each other, and and like not even studio apartments, they were room apartments.
Exactly. And you go to the Tenement Museum, and everything is preserved. So you're walking back in time, and you feel like this is it. This is 1919, New York. And you see how people lived, they would put chairs, lined up, and you would sleep on these chairs in the living room with your 8 siblings.
Right. And there was the clothesline out the window and all that business. Do they have a museum for 1970s, 1980s New York?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Is it just a street corner with garbage?
I would not be surprised. There has to be, there's everything here, but I love it. I truly love this city. I'm still a country girl at heart. I love to escape and
It's probably nice to get away to see your mother sometimes and have a little.
Oh yeah. It's a 7 hour.
It's not for any length of time where you eat too much for cooking.
That's whenever I feel the waistline expanding. I'm like, okay, Mom, I gotta go. Love you.
Yeah. I'll come back when I haven't eaten for 2 weeks.
Exactly. That's the first thing. Yeah, let me feed you.
That's the South.
Yes.
So that's one good positive quality of the South
Yes.
is the welcoming nature.
It is.
Uh, do you mind if I ask what neighborhood are you in New York?
I'm in Queens. Yeah.
Ah, yeah, Queens. Yeah, that would. If I figured if I ever moved to New York, I would probably try Queens. Brooklyn and Manhattan are completely out of the question at this point because they're too pricey. I'm sure
Yeah.
Queens
Yeah.
isn't exactly a thrill either, but
Wait,
price
there's
wise,
everything in New York is ridiculous.
yeah, yeah,
It's,
yeah.
if you sit down and think about it, you're like, why do I live here?
Right, right. Because everything it costs. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like New York and San Francisco. Those are the.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like it's cheap here in Chicago either, but I've looked into it at times, and I'm like, I don't know how anybody lives. How does anybody live in New York?
Very, very carefully.
Yeah,
You know,
it's like
you take every little thing you can get because and you try to squirrel it away as much as you can because
yeah,
you're gonna need it.
yeah, and then you just enjoy the small amount of space you're able to carve out of life.
Yeah, which is one reason, yeah, why I do live in Queens in the neighborhood I live in because it's one of the last somewhat affordable, in quotes, because
Yeah,
yeah, anywhere else
I,
like
I I read that even Harlem has kind of seen a renaissance
oh,
and
forget it, Harlem. Who can
singing.
afford Harlem?
It's like that used to be like everybody. It's like I mean, probably the Bronx is probably not exactly great either. I mean, it's like everything's been taken over by
Oh,
hipsters and
the
everything.
Bronx is expensive too, especially if the further you go out to the west.
And the Bronx, I mean, for God's sake, the Bronx, it just I mean, yeah, nobody
Yeah,
thought they were safe in the Bronx back in the. See, this, my whole perspective is of people talking about things from the '70s and the '80s.
right.
It's
Yeah.
like and from watching Serpico like 2 weeks ago, and some of them like, how did people live in this city?
Yeah, it's a completely different animal now. And I don't know how people, because I think it was pricey back then too, but now it's
Right?
astronomical. It's
Yeah.
unheard of. I don't know how people live. I live here, and I don't know how people live here.
That's great. So let me get back to your album bit. Is there any plans? I know you have a label mate that I'm friends with, Jesse Mallon, who
Oh, okay.
has been doing these virtual. Well, he does them from the Bowery Electric
I just did one. Yeah.
concerts. Yeah. And is there any plans to try to do something like that?
Well, I just did his show.
Oh, you did? Which one?
Yeah. Yeah, I did Bower Electric.
Which I mean, what week?
Just yesterday was the last day. It was up for a week. We did a show September 11th.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that was exciting.
Oh, I wish I would have known about that. I had no idea.
I wish yeah, no, I'm hope once I get the footage, I might put up a clip or two from the
Okay.
show. But yeah, to have a full band again, I had a sax player and keys and my two guitars, bass, and my drums, full band.
Yeah.
And which is unheard of right about now. I mean,
Yeah.
I did one show before that, Bands in Town, where I had a rather large band, but this with having the saxophone player was great. And I had actually never played the Bowery. I've had friends that played there, and I've gone to see a lot of different shows there. So it was nice to perform and be on a real stage again.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
sound was amazing. I watched a clip of it and I was like, wow, this sounds really good. And again, to have my band,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
I mean, that has to have been an amazing experience because of not performing for so long.
You don't realize how rusty you are until you're like, oh my god, wow, I felt that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there was a moment in the show too, like we got through one particular song and I was really excited about it, and I was like, yes, I said this on camera too. I was like, nailed it.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, so what was the process leading up to that show like? Did you have time to rehearse?
Yeah, fortunately, the rehearsal studios are starting to open back up. You have to wear the masks and
Yeah.
you have to keep it all spaced out and everything. But yeah, I was able to get a couple of rehearsals in before we did the show. So it felt like old times.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's great. And so how well do you think that came together after the rehearsals? How did the show actually? I mean, you obviously felt that one performance, but overall, how did the show go for you?
Um, I, I think it went well, considering I didn't have a chance to do anything like that in such a long time, and I was able to hit the notes that I wanted to hit.
Yeah,
I haven't watched the whole thing yet.
yeah,
I'm one of those singers that doesn't necessarily like to look back and, because then I'm like, ooh, you pinpoint everything that you hate instead of appreciating the whole. And I'm trying to
yeah.
get better about that, appreciate the whole. But I got some feedback from different people and they were like, that was a really great show. That was amazing. And that felt good. And it was, I try to make things fun and silly as much as possible, especially when I'm doing a live stream, because I've done them from my house, or uh, and I always try to make jokes. I try to interact with people as much as I can, just to so it's not so static. I hate watching when people are just kind of sitting there and they're playing and they're singing, and it can be great and lovely, and I appreciate the voices and everything, but I try to make it more like you're watching, Sonny and Cher variety show or something.
That's cool.
Yeah. So if you ever do get the chance to watch it, when I get the footage, you'll see I'm a complete nutball.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, and I hope that makes it fun for people.
Well, I'm sure, and right now everybody's searching for every little bit that, that they
Yeah.
can find. I think everybody's, especially with the winter looming, we're really gonna be searching for something
Yeah.
through this.
Feels like winter is here. I'm
Yeah.
walking around. I'm like, I needed a sweater. I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
even here it's gotten. It's gotten down to the 40s at night, which is
Yeah. What is that?
still. It was still in the 90s. It's in the beginning of the month, so
It's
it's
like,
a
yeah.
drastic turn.
It's like, when are the aliens coming? All right, 2020. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to ask you this one question, and I don't really know how much you want to get into a subject like this, but I've been sitting there thinking that as we get closer to November, where are your and how comfortable are you with discussing um, where we are as a country right now in this election year?
um, I don't tend to talk about politics.
Yeah,
I tend to keep my page very light.
that's fine.
No. I mean, I think we're definitely in a critical moment, um, more so than in past years. It's very reflective of the civil rights era.
Mhm.
And they say history repeats itself, and I do definitely feel like we're in this cyclical pattern right now, where everything's come to a head, and I do feel like something has to change, something has to
Yeah,
give. um I'm definitely planning on getting out and voting. I feel like at this point, there's too much vitriol being spewed, and there's too much divisiveness, and I hope that in the future who gets elected will bring some kind of understanding, some kind of um, a way in which instead of dividing our nation, we could allow for conversation, a
yeah,
real conversation about what's going on, so that people on both sides can understand each other's perspective in a way that's not being grappled with or dealt with right now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Um,
we all seem to be fairly angry
yeah,
about a lot of different things, and it's hard sometimes because it's a real fight. It's not it's not a typical time in America where we used to fight about things that were maybe stupid to fight that much about, but it's like now this is a real time in this country's history to try to fight for what you believe in, but
Right.
also try to remember that we're all stuck together in this too, which is sometimes difficult, I think, to do for
Right.
us. It's something I've had my own difficulty reining in, quite frankly. I tend to get a little hot-headed when it comes to politics and dealing with ignorance and stuff, but what do you do?
It's a very difficult conversation to have, and because tempers flare so easily, and which is why I don't, I try not to
Yeah.
delve into it. I do have my own views. I do try to vote.
Yeah.
And I encourage people to vote.
I think that's the most, with whatever you believe in. I think more people need to vote.
Right.
Or what? I think too few of us do it because at some point we stop thinking it mattered.
Right.
And that's part of the problem too.
Exactly. And I think again, this is definitely a very powerful election coming up that we're at a precipice in this country where uh, I think we could tumble down into some even darker times, and if things don't change.
Yeah, I'll be honest. My own opinion is I think no matter who wins in 6 weeks, I think we're still headed for some extreme fallout because just because of it's not just one person that's doing all this. It's a significant portion of the country that believes certain people and certain beliefs are wrong, and they're showing signs that they'll take violent means to fight for their beliefs.
Right.
Is a disturbing idea, and that's something we as a country will have to deal with as well. It's not going to matter who's in office for that.
We're in some pretty scary times, not just politically, but then with the environment and
Forget it. I mean, the right now, like my ex-wife lives in the Pacific Northwest, and she just got remarried, and 3 towns away were fires from where her wedding took place. I mean,
wow.
And these things are still going on. A friend of mine sent me a map of all the fires, and it's like just engulfed, so much of that area, and that's what's going on. Climate change. It's
right.
We should have been doing something about this 40 years ago, but we decided not to.
Right. Yeah. So we're just at a very
critical juncture.
Point. Yeah, we're at the pendulum is swinging,
right.
and it can swing the wrong way. It is swinging.
It is swinging. Yeah, we need to hit it the other way.
Exactly.
To get off the heaviness, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you threading the needle there, because I understand, and not everybody. There's a lot of artists that will be, vehement about their positions, but not everybody.
I work for Stevie. Stevie will not hold back.
Yeah. No, I know. I've heard some of his stuff. Yeah, and he's been great to hear some of that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you kind of like a simple question. I think I'll wrap it up after that, because I don't want to take too much of your time, especially on a Saturday night when you could be doing more. Yeah. Whatever.
I got called the midwife to watch.
Yeah. I got baseball to watch too. Very exciting stuff. But as a beginning, as a developing music fan, who would you say your biggest influences were early on? I'm not saying would necessarily influence how you perform, but just who sparked your creative interest in music the most as a young person?
Well, that's a very difficult question, because again, my mom, growing up, we listened to everything, and and I feel like I took from all of that. I remember we on road trips we listened to a lot of Nancy Wilson, not from heart, but
Right. No, I know which Nancy Wilson. Yeah.
The
It
jazz.
took me a while. It took me a while in earlier years to figure out there were two of them, and one had nothing to do with heart.
Right, very very different singers.
Yeah.
No, so sometimes depending on the kind of music I sing, people hear Nancy Wilson, and then as I got a little older, I had more R&B influences, with Stevie Wonder, and then I think high school, college, I started listening to more rock music, more alternative, like I have writers that I really love, like Gwen Stefani and Fiona Apple and Dave Matthews. Dave Matthews kind of ruled my life for a while.
Okay.
And then even heavier stuff. Like I always wished I could do a duet with like Chris Cornell or somebody like that.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been like a dream come true. I have so many different kind of musical influences because I love so many different kinds of music. And I think if you listen to the album, you'll hear all those little bits and pieces come out in different songs.
Gotcha.
So it's hard for me to say, yeah, it was this person. I guess mostly when I was very young, Nancy Wilson, because we listened to so much jazz standards growing up in the house. But even, like Tremaine Hawkins, because we listened to a lot of gospel too. I grew up in the church. So, we had that and the Clark sisters. And, so I have all of that, I also have a lot of Joni Mitchell in my music. I think if you listen to it,
Okay.
The folkier stuff comes out on some of the songs. So I run the gamut.
Well, I see a lot of people. It's interesting because I was there. You mentioned Joni Mitchell. I was never the biggest Joni Mitchell fan, but I see her being referenced. I feel more in the last few years by people.
Wow.
I think it's interesting because I just never. I mean, I knew Blue was a big deal. I didn't realize she was as influential as it seems like. She seems to be in these recent years enjoying a renaissance by people that picked up on her at some point and decided to make music of their own, which is fascinating.
She had a very interesting approach to how she wrote songs, and I like music you're listening to like a storytelling. It's not just there are times for just the bump and grind music and the get in the club music, but I tend to listen to, or I'm drawn more to albums where you feel like it's a storytelling. And I like it to have poetry and very melodic, and her stuff is very very melodic and
oh yeah.
And she tells interesting stories. So I think that's why I'm drawn to that. And like on like the rock end, like I think I was talking about Incubus the other day. I love Brandon Boyd's writing in the same way. Like if you listen to his song Here in My Room, it's such a beautiful story of how this guy's just sitting around at this party that he's not really enjoying, and the girl just walks in and changes everything. And he says like going from black and white to full blown Technicolor. I'm like, it's so poetic and beautiful, and you totally understand what he's saying. And you're enraptured and caught up in this great story. So I like artists that tell great stories.
That's cool. That's awesome. Well, Jessie, I really appreciate you taking the time today to speak with me. I wish you good luck on the album.
Thank you.
Droppin comes out on Wicked Cool via Orchard Distribution on October 9th. And keep an eye on our website, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all stuff, everything. For news and when she might do another live stream, or when we could actually go back to seeing shows again.
Oh, dear God, soon, please.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jessie. You have a great rest of your night, okay?
Thank you. Enjoy your baseball.
Thank you. I will. Enjoy. I forgot what you said. Something about maidens.
They'll call the midwife.
Call the midwife. Okay. For some reason, I had it in my head it's a hand's maiden tail or something. What is
That's
called
good
a midwife? What is called a midwife?
too. I don't think you want to know.
Really?
No,
What is it? Pregnancy stories?
it is pregnancy stories, yes. From the 50s and the 60s.
That's fascinating. Now I'm actually intrigued.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a great show.
enjoy pregnancy stories from the 50s and 60s.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. You have a good night.
You too.
All right, bye.